So we're talking about sales. And what we said just a minute ago is that sales are simply a factor of sessions and conversion rate. So we'll just do sessions multiplied by conversion rate. Now, keep in mind, sessions, that could be, that's mainly what you're going to see in Seller Central. If you're working on Vendor Central, you'll see it as glance views. And this can also pertain to the actual advertising side of things. If you are looking at your ad sales, then we'd be looking at clicks times conversion rate is going to be the total sales. Now, once again, kind of like we were saying on the last episode around ACOS, we could also add, to be technically correct, it's also times your average sales price, which would be ASP, or your average order value, depending on how you'd like to abbreviate it. But it's going to be that we are technically kind of including this here. So it's how much traffic you're driving at what price, how much traffic you're driving at what price, and then how frequently are you converting that traffic. But once again, the ASP typically doesn't change that significantly month to month, week to week. So if we're really trying to see, why are sales down 30% year over year, it's likely not just going to be because, all of our prices were reduced 30% year over year and conversion rates didn't increase at all and traffic didn't change at all. That's just a rare, I don't think you're ever going to see that. So I've never seen it. So we're really just looking at sessions and conversion rate. Those are the big swingers. So let's talk about these individually, and kind of coming off of that last episode around how to troubleshoot rising ACOS. It's going to be the same concept where if sessions doubles and conversion rate stays the same, and assuming, maybe I should just erase that for now. So we'll actually just take this off because I don't want to, as much as it's important for you to see that there, that's not going to be a major talking point. I just wanted everyone to be aware. So if your sessions double and your conversion rate stays the same, your sales will double. If your sessions stay the same and your conversion rates double, your sales will still double. Let me ask you this. What happens if your conversion rates double, but your sessions get cut in half? Think about it. What happens? So if we do times 2 and then times 0.5, you're going to get 1 over here, right? So your sales stay flat. Your sales don't increase at all. Now, if this was a 1 over here, if conversion rates didn't change, sessions got cut in half, then your sales would get cut in half. So that's making a little bit messy here. That's essentially how this is going to work. So we're going to talk now more specifically around what's going to actually move the needle on sessions versus conversion rate. We'll put our sessions over here. And we're talking about what actually moves the needle on traffic. And really, maybe I should just be saying traffic instead of sessions, since that's a little more confusing. There's a couple of elements. So total traffic going to your page, going to your product pages. One of the biggest variables that's going to influence this is simply the amount of search volume on the platform, right? If there's a lot more search volume coming through, usually every seller on Amazon is going to see a rise in their total traffic and therefore a rise in their total sales as well. But maybe sometimes search volume doesn't, you might see your sales come down and you realize that, it's actually because my sales, my sessions were coming down. And so you're trying to look at this and you see that search volume actually didn't change. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here, as well as trying to troubleshoot sales. When you do see sales moving in a certain direction, which one are these moving? So we're going to say conversion rates didn't change. The only thing that happened was sessions dropped. So the first couple of items we're going to look at is we're going to see, okay, did the search volume decrease? If search volume decreased, that's very likely going to be part of why sales are down. Something else that might have happened is we might have lost impression share. So maybe search volume didn't drop, but impression share, which I'll abbreviate as IS, and we'll also throw in here top of search impression share. So top of search impression share is a metric that Amazon gives you in your campaigns, which essentially just tells you out of all the possible impressions that campaign could have gotten at the top of search, how many of those impressions did you win? So if you see a top of search impression share saying 25%, that means, hey, you could have gotten four times more the number of actual impressions that you got at top of search, but you only got 25% of what was possible. So 100% top of search impression share would mean basically you fully dominated top of search for every possible impression that campaign was eligible for in those placements. The regular impression share comes through, or I guess the broader sponsored products impression share comes through the search term impression share reports, which you can download in the advertising reports section of Amazon. We will talk more in depth on these topics in particular as we talk more about reporting and how to make the most of those. But the reason why we draw the attention here is because if search volume didn't stay, or if search volume didn't move, so your sales are down, your sessions are down, but search volume is not the culprit. Search volume didn't drop. The next thing is to look at the impression share. If you see that your impression share decreased, either because your top of search impression share fell or your total impression share for sponsored products fell, then you have an idea of we're losing visibility. Perhaps we're being outbid by competitors, and competitors have been pushing their bids and they've been winning more of those placements. Or maybe we were reducing our bids, trying to focus on ACoS, and we lost those placements. But now you know exactly why your sessions are down is because you had fewer impressions. And you obviously need those impressions to drive those clicks, to drive that traffic to your pages. Something else in a similar level of impression share is going to be click-through rate. So obviously, if clicks are a big driver of sessions, click-through rate is going to be a pretty important metric to look at to see what's going on with those sessions. The reason why I like looking at click-through rate is that typically when you see a drop in click-through rate, you'll be able to tie that back to you're probably losing some top of search impression share. Like we were talking about on the lesson around how to critically understand click-through rates and everything that's going in there, we were saying that placement is one of the biggest influences on actual click-through rate. So top of search typically has really high click-through rates. So if your click-through rates are dropping, you could probably bet that you're losing a lot of top of search impression share. And that's what's causing the drop in that traffic. But the other thing too could just be that you might be having some listing issues with your product overall. So it's not just the placements, but perhaps the product price has changed. So we'll just put again down here product. And that's a little bit of a subcategory to click-through rates. But your product might have started losing click-through rate because, we've seen this happen before where our sellers had to increase their prices in order to protect the margins of their business. And when they did that, their products became less clickable in search. And as the click-through rates dropped, they also started losing some momentum and some ranking. And so they therefore started losing top of search impression share as well. And it all kind of cascaded. But these are the primary elements that you're going to be wanting to look at when trying to troubleshoot what's going on with sessions. Now, I think I might have forgot to add one other item here to the search volume. That probably didn't tell you how exactly to estimate search volume. And I'm sure there were some people saying, how on earth do I figure that out? So if you are in Seller Central, Amazon gives us the search query performance dashboard. You can access that in brand analytics. If you are not the owner of the account and you don't see brand analytics anywhere in the search query performance dashboard, you will just have to get in contact with whoever has added you as a user to that seller account and make sure that they give you those permissions to be able to view all of the brand analytics. Because those brand analytics are going to allow us to actually see Amazon's first-party data around search volumes for the queries that are relevant to our brand. So that's an extremely helpful tool, and it's also first-party data rather than having to rely on estimators from other tools. So I love having access to that. If you are partnering with a vendor account, which is essentially they're a wholesaler to Amazon, they're not a third-party seller. With those vendor accounts, unfortunately, they do not have access to the search volumes from Amazon. So those wholesalers if you work with a wholesaler, you will have to switch over to a third-party tool. In our experience, we have found Helium 10 to be one of the most pervasive tools and one of the most reliable. So that's a good tool, certainly worth having for anyone who's an advertising manager to have access to that tool. And that'll help you get those search volume estimates. So now let's switch tracks a little bit, and we'll talk more about what actually goes into conversion rate. Now, we've already talked about conversion rate a number of times. We talked about it on the how to critically analyze data lesson, as well as the ACoS lesson, how to troubleshoot rising ACoS. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We'll just quickly review the kind of key elements that are going to go into conversion rate. But of course, we always have to consider the product listing itself. What's been going on there? Did images change? Did reviews change? Did prices change? Or competitors? Did the competitive landscapes? We can say again here, COMP for competitors. Did competitors come in and start targeting our products or come in with more competitive offers? something else to be very, very aware of. And then, of course, the conversion rate itself is dependent on the type of sessions that are coming here. So if 100% of the sessions that are coming through is all branded traffic, it's all people exclusively searching for a brand, your conversion rates are going to be insanely high. But if all of your branded search volume drops off, and now all of your traffic that's coming here is just driven from random searches that aren't actually looking for your product, your conversion rate's going to fall. So obviously the type of traffic or the type of sessions that's coming through is going to determine those conversion rates. So that's where we come back to our keyword targeting, and we talk about, our top of funnel, middle of funnel versus bottom, our TOFU, MOFU, BOFU. But essentially that's all of our targeting. I probably could have just said targeting to save some space there on the whiteboard, but whatever. Competitive landscape, brand and non-brand. We could also say, the paid to organic is another one. Paid traffic versus organic. Typically, depending on where the traffic is coming from, you will see slightly different performances in conversion rate. Now, unfortunately, we don't have organic search term reports, so it's really harder to dissect what might be going in on the organic side of things. But certainly with the paid traffic, we can get a good idea because we do have those search term reports, we do have those targeting capabilities, and of course, we can never forget about the placements, which that is something else that is only available to us for paid. When it comes to organic sales, we can't see where those clicks came from, where those top of search clicks, where those rest of search clicks. But on the paid side of things, we absolutely can break out the placements, the actual keyword targeting, and see what that's looking like. So most of the time, when we are trying to optimize conversion rates from a total sales perspective, most of the time what we're going to try to focus on is how can we optimize the product? And we'll talk more about this on actually optimizing those listings. That's not necessarily the topic for this lesson, but it is going to be trying to make sure that product listing page itself is as strong as it can be, because it doesn't matter how good your keywords are, how good your strategy are. If all the sessions are going to a weak product page, your sales are going to fall. So within our keyword targeting, we can try to influence the conversion rates a little bit, but on the PPC side, we are a bit limited here. So PPC can help drive a ton of traffic. So we can always help here with getting more sessions. We can always push top of search. We can always go after more keywords and bring all that traffic in. But if we're struggling with conversion rates, we're going to have to take another look at our listing. And then, of course, the final thing here is, and we can just put it here, but we never want to forget the macro trends, which have become increasingly important for us to keep an eye on. And so that's where we use things such as the AMX 500 and other tools, which will kind of estimate the overall trends on Amazon from a PPC perspective. It tracks total spend, total conversion rates, total sales, total ACoS across several hundred accounts. So that can be a helpful one to see if the trends that you're seeing in your account are felt kind of across the globe, or if it is just isolated to your account and an issue going on with your products. So once again, just to review all of this, to break sales down to its most fundamental levels, the only two metrics you really care about are sessions and conversion rate. So if a client, or even if you're managing your own account, if you're wondering why sales are down, or a client's asking you why sales are down, the first thing you do is just see what moved. Was it sessions, conversion rate? And once you identify the biggest offender here, his conversion rate might have dropped 5%, but sessions dropped 20%, or vice versa. Whichever happens, you now know, okay, we got to dig our way through here, figure out what's going on, and work your way through each of these potential factors that could have impacted sessions or conversion rate. And there might even be other elements here that we aren't thinking of right now. So never stop thinking about what's actually going into influencing these figures. But once you have that, you'll certainly be able to figure out why your sales increased, why your sales decreased, as well as opportunities for next steps.